Delighted to welcome this lad on. He's a lad that I've known for around 10 years, I'd say 10, 11 years in football. Our paths first crossed in the well-known Trev, the well-known Brazilia's nightclub, where I actually thought he was going to kill me, which goes with his reputation. But I'm going to save that story for another day, I think. I'm hoping that's probably not going to come up tonight. We've been really good teammates at Walsham. I don't know if you'll like me saying this or not, but if there was a most improved trophy, a bit like a clubman of the year, Matty Morton went from strength to strength. He was unbelievable as he went through the seasons. Real improvements. Became captain of Walsham, major part of the successes as Walsham moved forwards. Left Walsham, sadly, became a player manager over at Thetford. He's done a cracking job, actually. He's done a really, really good job since taking over from Danny White. Until this season, and he might not like me saying that, but I'm sure that will come up in conversation. Things might start to change, hopefully, for him. Incredible career at Gym United, his exploits as chairman, as treasurer, as manager, as captain, as physio, as chauffeur, as every role possible at that club. Over the 10 years has been absolutely brilliant. They've run Suffolk. They've absolutely run the show in Suffolk, reaching a National Cup final. And then most recently, being known for coming out as gay in quite a difficult environment that is the men's football game. So he's done a hell of a lot of pioneering work behind that. Delighted to welcome the main man, Matty Morton, on this show. How are you, Matty?
I'm really good, thank you. Finally got the call up to the Trev And Tats podcast.
Yeah.
It says a lot about you. You talk about being good friends. I've known you for that long, and it takes me being on Sky Sports, BBC and ITV for you to take any notice of me. Brilliant.
Well, we thought we'd give you like a few of the maybe the lesser platforms just to warm up on.
Yeah.
Didn't quite think that you were prepared for us, but
it's a good plan. Well, I've certainly peaked at this, haven't I? Career's over.
Talk us through what you got in the background, Matt, because we might as well get some royalties in now.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think why that might be there.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know where it came from. Was that your production team that put that in?
Yeah, just working in the background.
Cracking job. Yeah, it's a health and wellness technology business that I'm part of. So I'm a shareholder and a director. I met the co-founders, who are serial technology entrepreneurs, a few years ago. And then after 6 months of knowing them, I decided to exit my old business, which was obviously gym design, fitness equipment, and join this exciting business here called Amplify. So yeah, very exciting. We're about to launch on Boxing Day, and we're giving health, fitness, sport, education, tracking, tips, articles, workouts, programs, and access to stars, current pro athletes, ex-pro athletes, all for free, including Rio Ferdinand, who's an investor in the business actually as well.
Yeah, and I saw a link to that actually. Yeah, and the work that you've been doing with Rio. I say Rio, look, Trev, Rio, me and Rio, quite a good mate. So
he is the second best centre half in our team. Yeah.
I take it you are manager though. Yeah, you're manager. Tell me your manager.
Listen, he's second choice. He can be the cultured one.
Matt, let's talk about the last bit that I mentioned in terms of the work you've been doing, pioneering sort of the LGBT. How's that been going? What you've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes there. You've obviously had a fair bit of platforms that have worked for you in terms of, like you say, the Sky Sports, and I've seen you on the ITV. I think was it BBC as well? I think there was a bit of everything really. How's that going?
Yeah, it's good. It snowballed really. It's an interesting one for me because you kind of got these two worlds. You've got the local world around here who have known this about me for a while. And then it took over a year for Sky Sports, I think 16, 17 months since I actually announced it, for Sky Sports to get hold of that story. And then contacted me, wanted to run it as national news. And it wasn't until then that I realised that I was the highest playing openly gay footballer in the UK.
Wow,
which
that's incredible.
To them was big news. To me was shocking. Because I say I never really rated myself on the national scale. Clearly you've got Premier League, Championship, I'm playing semi-pro in the 8th tier or the 9th tier, and it's crazy to think that nobody above me, nobody better than me, and there are plenty of them, have come out and openly acknowledged their sexuality or feel comfortable to do that. So that's really one of the main reasons for doing what I'm doing. That I think it's such a subject that clearly is now close to my heart, but also it is still a taboo in sport. And yet, in the big wide world, it's come a long way. But in football, particularly, actually, even more so than sport generally, it's come nowhere since Justin Fashanu. And I did a podcast recently, which was for the BBC, with Justin's niece Amal, with Thomas Beattie, who came out after he retired. And it's shocking really to hear some of the stories from people that have had to wait until after they stopped playing, since Justin came out and obviously received the abuse that he received, even internally in his own family, even through his own brother. And we come very far forward at all. I think in the community we have, but in sport we haven't. And there's two ways to look at it. The first way is what most people tend to, which is that it's just not accepted by the boardrooms, by the changing rooms, and by the fans, and that's why people don't do it. Or actually, the view that I'm trying to advocate really, which is that that's not the case, because football is a community in itself, but it's a representative of the community as a whole. And I think until somebody actually tries to do that, you won't really understand fully whether it is or isn't accepted. And me doing what I did, it proves that in a smaller pool, in non-league and semi-professional, in that game, I've had no abuse at all.
But sooner or later, somebody's got to try and make a stand as high as you could possibly go, haven't they? And after that, then I should imagine what will happen is it should kind of have a knock-on effect. But do you personally think that's still a long way off?
I think it's how long is a piece of string, unfortunately. I mean, if you had have asked me 30 years ago, if I was growing up in that era, once Justin Fashanu did that, would there be a snowball of other players that did it? I probably would have said, yeah, I would imagine that will be the straw that broke the camel's back, but it wasn't. And I think that there's many reasons for that. But if you look at the outside of the football community, then it wasn't ready. It was still a very homophobic, very racist community. Both those things have come a long way, but still have a long way to go still. And I think now is the time where if somebody was to do it at that level, with social media, with public opinion being more accessible versus pure media opinion, I think it absolutely would have a snowball effect over the 3 to 5 years following. You wouldn't have one person doing it and then 10 the next day announcing it. But as long as the reaction was what I believe it would be, which is positive, I think you would have more and more people doing that. And that's what it needs to do for it to become normal. And until then, unfortunately, people like me are going to be the ones that are pioneering it and leading the way, which isn't the way it should be, unfortunately. I mean, like I say, who am I? But that is the way of the world and where we are at the moment.
Matt,
I think. Sorry, Tats.
No, I was just going to say. Go on, Trev.
Yeah.
Is this that power struggle again? Look, Tats, it's called Trev And Tats. Wait your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you. We've established that. Can we now crack on?
This forum's harder though. Actually, doing it this way is harder because when we're doing it over sort of just audio, at least we cue ourselves in, don't we? We've got a way of queuing ourselves in and just looking at each other and making eye contact that on a podcast you wouldn't normally see. This is harder. I mean, we've all found this during lockdown on any sort of Zoom meeting, whether it's the family ones, whether it's work ones. It's always this awkwardness of like people just interrupting each other because you just can't sort of see the cues the same.
I think you've hit a really good point there. It is much more difficult having to look at you during these things as well.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the reasons why it took me 30 years to realise I was gay looking at you.
I'll be honest, I was quite disappointed having car shared with you because you'd never get in my car, having car shared with you for so long that then finding out you were gay and not once did you just say hello to me, like be friendly with me. I just tells you a lot. I thought we had something special, Matt, to be honest.
When people have said to me that, how did you not realise for like 30 years? I've said, have you ever shared a change room with James Tatham and Nathan Clark? If that doesn't convince you it's straight, I don't know what will.
Sorry, Trev. Where were we?
I've forgot. Well, we know where we are. You're struggling with Zoom calls. There might be tats. Yeah, you're struggling. We're fine, but you're struggling. So we've established that. But no, more to what I was going to say was that obviously our paths have crossed in local football this season, and then obviously a number of months ago and what have you. I think the refreshing thing that I've noticed is when you made the announcement, and then when you were on Sky and BBC recently, not one person that I've come across has been negative about it. Not one person has been derogatory about it, and it's almost like, okay, yeah. So if you kind of think why it is that the small local non-league scene can kind of accept that, you'd like to think, that you're average man on the street. You know what I'm saying? You'd like to think that sooner or later people have just got to move with the times, haven't they?
Yeah, I think it's going to, like I said, the proof will be when somebody at each level decides to take that plunge and see what the reaction is. Personally, yeah. I don't buy into the whole this bigger risk the higher you go. I really don't. I think that everything's relative. If you take me, for example, if I was playing in the Premier League, I would have been looking at it thinking, if any brand I'm working with drops me as an endorsement, they're going to be crucified by the media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a number of other brands that are going to want to work with me because of this, the media are going to be all over me, so my profile will go through the roof. My own fans will stick with me. Of that, I've got no doubt. My teammates, it's 2020. You know your teammates well enough at a certain point. The majority, regardless, will be fine with it and will be accepting of that. So really, your only concern is two things: the boardroom, and then the opposition fans. Now, For me, I had the same concern with the opposition fans when I was doing it. But I actually thought it's worse at our level because you can pick people out at our level in a crowd of 200, 300, 400 people. You know who's saying what, and especially with my personality, you guys both know, I'll know who it is and I'll want to address that. So actually, it's a bigger thing for me to have to deal with than if there's 60, 70,000 people. Trev, you look very surprised. 60, 70,000 people shouting it. You think, well, what can you do about it? You just got to get on with it.
Yeah.
You can't take on 60,000. You can't pick out one within it. So I actually think there are arguments to be had. Is it harder at our level or is it harder at pro level? And you can flip a coin. It's your individual circumstances. I think it's a great opportunity for somebody who does that, who takes that leap. And it's going to take a certain set of personality.
The last thing I want to mention then, and then we'll move on to Thetford this season, which you probably don't want to move on to. But the last thing I want to mention, is there anyone, Matt? Because there's been lots of following on Twitter and I know under the Sky Sports tweet there were thousands of comments. Is there anybody that's contacted you privately? And obviously you're not gonna name or anything like that. But have you? Is there anyone that you have directly supported just by sort of by the media attention behind what you've been doing? Has anybody sort of privately messaged you and gone, do you know what, I've been struggling with this and I'm gonna come out, or you've given me the confidence to do this, all that sort of side of things? So is there?
Yeah, so that's a really good question actually. Trev must have given you that one to ask. No, seriously though, in terms of the journey, when the Bury Free Press article happened a few months before the Sky Sports one, there was a handful of people that reached out, mainly from, I guess, the eastern counties or the local-ish area. And they reached out confidentially, saying that either they or somebody close to them have struggled with the exact same thing, whether it be a football player or somebody not in football, and that they just wanted somebody to talk to share experiences, see what negative things I'd experienced as a result, how you can prepare yourself. When the Sky Sports one happened, that was like the floodgates. And no word of a lie, hundreds of people DMing you, asking the same thing, but now on scale, and not even nationally. People in the US, people in Brazil, it's crazy. Like messaging
incredible,
me saying, just reading it, the strength that they got from it, that actually I'm not on my own, it's not just me. And this guy has actually had the balls to address this, get the ball by the horns, and then go on national television and talk about it. And to them, that seems to have given them quite a lot of confidence. Now, not everybody's then decided to do something about it, but a lot of people have said it's taken them a step closer.
Yeah, of course.
And a couple of people, and now I am only talking less than 10, but a couple of people have actually immediately said, do you know what, I'm going to go and tell my parents tomorrow, or I'm going to go and tell my football team tomorrow. That's all the positive side. The negative side, which is actually the part that's motivated me more, is the amount of people that have messaged me saying that they've thought about suicide because of this, that their brother or their cousin or their best friend killed themselves because of it, that they've quit football and isolated themselves because they'd rather do that than come out and have to deal with what they thought may be negative. And those subjects for me are the ones that actually keep me motivated to keep talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you can prevent people from feeling like their only option is to quit the sport that they love, or worse, take their own life, then you're doing something really quite powerful. And that's really why I keep doing it now.
Yeah. No, spot on.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic to know that you're having that impact on people as well. Let's lower the mood completely by talking about Thetford then this season, Matt. What's happened? What's going on this season? Because I watched you over at Walsham, and I have to say, and I suppose I should be speaking with a bit more loyalty towards Walsham, but for 20, 30 minutes in that first half, you guys looked really good. And then suddenly it just faded out. I don't know if that's the story of this season, like playing in patches or...
Frustrating thing to talk about. I caught up with Trev afterwards in the bar, actually, and we had a chat about our season and their season. And I said then, and I stand by it now, all the way up probably until just after the Woodbridge game, which ironically was that first win that we got. We've been playing, right from the start of the season, some really good stuff. And we've got some really good players. And I'm really happy with our squad overall. I mean, look, there is one thing that I would want to add, and that might happen now that Jack Braham's committed again to start playing properly and training and getting fit. But we have been lacking a goal scorer.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And there's various reasons for that. But apart from that, we've been playing some really good stuff. We've got some really good players. The problem is we've been doing it in patches. And everyone here knows that you cannot win football games by playing well for 45 minutes out of 90. But all I can say at the moment is, quite honestly, I've got a very good bunch of players, a very good squad, and I am underperforming at the moment with them versus them as a team. I'm happy with the team and the squad that I've got. I need one goal scorer, and hopefully Jack coming back will fix that hole. But other than that, it's me as much as they are not performing.
From what I've seen this season, I think you've got a really honest group of players, and you can't beat that, because they'll be there when the chips are down on a cold Tuesday night away from home. They're the ones that you can depend on. Apart from, I know there was the Mildnor game, and Mildnor are a good side, but you're not getting rolled over.
Spanked.
You know, and that's massive. That's massive, because when there's a fine line, as you well know, it's only a period of time, then it turns. But you, with your experience of playing for as long as you have at that level as well, you'll know when that time comes, and you'll think, well, I've given it long enough now, I might need to bring in a couple, or you know what, we need to turn it by 2 or 3 games time. So it's, you won't be panicking. I know you won't, because you've got no need to. Simple as.
It happens that way, doesn't it? It's like that word momentum gets used a lot, doesn't it? But sometimes when you're down the bottom, you can play well, but for whatever reason, you just can't find the win. You can't buy the win. Everything that you do just doesn't seem to come off. And likewise, and probably you're feeling this, Trev, maybe at the other side of the table at the moment, where I haven't seen too many Walsham games, as you well know, Trev. Maybe when the weather's okay, I might come out for a couple, but it looks like you've got the momentum on your side, and the players have got that sort of belief, haven't they? Because they've been on a winning run, and they believe that everything that they do is going to come off. And we've been, Matt, you've been in changing rooms. Trev, you've been in changing rooms where at the lower end of the league fighting a relegation, and at the top end of the league where it's just completely different experiences, different feelings, and trying to buy that win at the bottom of the league. even though you know your team are playing well, is hard. And likewise, you can't do much wrong at the other end when you go on that run of 7, 8, 9, 10 games unbeaten, and everything you touch seems to go in the back of the net, and you don't have to play that well, and you still come off with a 2-1 win or a 1-0 win or whatever.
Well, you look at Tats, that run that we had in what I still say is one of my most enjoyable ever seasons playing at this level. That Walsham season, that record finish where we were top of New Year, and there was a genuine belief after a period of time. We joked about it at the beginning when we first got in that kind of top 3 or 4. Are we going to go for promotion? Have you applied, Smithy, for the promotion? Blah, blah, blah. And then after 10 or 11 or 12 games in a row of wins and draws, and suddenly you're top. And I think we were still top mid-February. And you kind of think to yourself, actually, and we genuinely believe we could actually win this. I mean, how incredible to win the league with Walsham. Yeah. And those games, because of what we were fighting for, there were a few games that could have gone either way, but our resilience and that never say die, actually, along with the momentum of the previous wins, got us over the line and got us another 3 points. And it wasn't until that one game where we lost, and we knew from there that mathematically we probably couldn't win the league now because the second and third place teams leapfrogged us and we couldn't catch them. And we had 3 losses in a row after that, do you remember? And they were quite big losses. And if those games had have happened 3 weeks earlier, they'd have been the other way around. It is about that mentality and that momentum for sure.
And it was that bubble bursting as well. And you can look at it from lots of different angles, but the moment we dropped the points, I think it was away at Brantham, and I think we were 2-1 up or something like that, and then they scored right at the end, and I think we dropped just a couple of points. I don't think we lost the game. I think we drew the game.
It was a 3-3, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think that mentally that took such an effect because it really felt like a loss. I think the way it was lost as well, having led for so long, just changed the mentality of it. I'm convinced, and I'm with you, Matt, massively. I was captain that year. I was starting to actually believe that at Walsham I might win the third non-league, being captain of Walsham in like the last few years, thinking that might actually happen. And we were probably, if I'm, you can make excuses for various different reasons. We were probably light on 2 or 3 squad players that were good enough to come in and make an impact. And I look at your team, Trev, now, and you've got 15, 16, 17 players that actually are all fighting for positions. I don't think there's anyone. You might have 2 or 3 names on that team sheet that are definites. And then after that, you've rotated your squad really, really well, and you've got the players to do that. We didn't have that. We were just short on that, and I think it took its toll in the end across the season.
I think also the one of the biggest things we've all been in that situation. It's all relevant to the level that you play at or whatever. But when you're in that situation and you're on a run, it's the belief. It happens very rarely in your career where you step on a pitch and you're going to get some sort of result. You're going to score a goal, and where you've been in a team and you're 1-0 down with 10 minutes to go, but you still believe that you will score a goal. And you can't, that forms over a period of time. It's obviously a confidence thing. It's a mentality thing. You can't teach it. I don't care what people say. You cannot teach that. A lot of that comes from within with players. But even those who have got mental strength still need confidence and still need that inner belief at times that's what separates your best sides from your not so good sides or whatever. Is they reach a point when they just we always look back. Everyone's been watching Sky Sports documentaries over the last few months. The Man United side that won that treble. How many 93rd, 94th minute goals did they score?
Definitely. Yeah.
Champions League final, 2 goals in the 90 plus minutes. It's because and the amazing thing is when you read Alex Ferguson's book, he says we equalised when Sheringham scored. And I think it was McLaren, who's his number 2, said, right, now we need to go forward and he said, no, we're going to go and win it. He just knew that they were going to go and get another corner potentially and go and win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely. Matt, how long were you at Walsham for? Because it was pushing on a decade, wasn't it?
It was just over 10 years. Yeah. Yeah. I obviously signed very young.
Yeah. About 30.
I actually had 2 spells there, believe it or not. So I joined at 17 first. Mike Powers was watching a game where I was playing for the first adult side that I signed for in a cup final in Derry. And Mike Powers was there for some reason. And him and Smithy contacted me after that game and asked me to go. And I came across and I got, Muzzy always jokes about this, I got sent off twice in 3 games.
That is unlike you, really.
Yeah. It was, believe it or not, Taz, you've only actually seen a more well-behaved version of me. But at 17, it wasn't pretty. So Mike Powers, he phoned me one day, and the way the suspensions used to work was you got a certain amount of weeks, and then there'd be a gap, and then a certain amount of weeks if they were spread across your suspensions. So I had Mike Powers, and I'd never been, in and around the village before. And I just remember the phone ringing and Mike Powers coming on, and you eat Matt? And I was like, yeah, not bad. And he basically told me that because my suspensions had come through, he goes, yeah, there's you're going to have to miss about 12 games. And I said, what? And he goes, well, you've got 3 games, and I'm not going to keep doing the accent. You've got 3 games, then 2 games
not from Bristol.
Available.
He's coming on after as well. I can't wait for him to do your accent.
He'll never get it. He'll never get it. And then basically, long story short, I would have missed 3 games, then been eligible for 2 games, then missed 3 games, and then been eligible for a couple, and then missed 1 or something. So it's 12 games, and me being unreasonable and hot-headed at 17, he says, so Smithy doesn't want to play you until all of the suspensions are over, because otherwise you'll disrupt the team, so you'll be out and then in, and then out and then in. So I said, what, so I'm not going to play football for 12 weeks? He said, yeah. And I just completely lost the plot, kicked off and went, right, bugger off, deregistered me, I'm going to go and sign for someone else, I'm not interested, rah, rah, rah. And that was my first spell at Walsham. And you can imagine when I went back at 20? Yeah, 20.
Had your suspension finished by then?
Believe it or not, I think I was on a new one. And yeah, I remember walking back in and Powers, probably thought, oh my God. But yeah, I can't say I was an angel, but I was better.
Are the rumours true that you were moved? Because I think, having seen you play at right back and centre half, you started to be a hell of a player at centre half, and no one really knew that you could play there. And then suddenly you were switched to centre half. And I just want to know if the rumours are true that they moved you to centre half just because you had more like surface area to kick the ball into, rather than just on the right, rather than just on the right hand side.
I think it was because we had this really lazy forward who didn't like to run to the channels, so I just had to hit it straight in the pitch. I learned
from the best. When you played up front with Steve McGavin, Ian Stringfellow, you soon learned. Not for me anymore.
Yeah,
I'm 30. Yeah. I'm 30 plus now. Brainy.
Yeah,
Ollie Hughes, do one.
I was actually always a centre half really, and then Walsham moved me to right back. And then John Taylor's second season, I moved back into centre half. So which is where I prefer to be. It's too much running at full back for me. I prefer just to short bursts, recover. Too heavy.
To be fair, I think it worked out really well for you. Matt will laugh at this, but what about the time where you went behind my back, Matt, and became captain in the changing room when John Taylor just came in and announced it? He didn't even pull me aside. I reckon you were part of that.
Well, listen, I'd be lying if I say I didn't see it coming. I thought it was the obvious decision, to be honest. But I wasn't aware of it beforehand. No. I'd
like to put the record straight as well, and just to say I stretched the armband massively as well before I passed it over to Matt Morton.
Yeah, so... I had to get a new one. I mean, no one told me you wore it around your waist.
Well, on that, I think it's time to get rid of you. So,
well, who can blame you? Enjoy Ollie Hughes. Say hello to him for me.
We certainly will. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
No problem.
And I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.